on a break about what was happening in Rivers State, the state of emergency that was declared. You said it was unconstitutional, and you felt that the legislature, the National Assembly, had failed in its constitutional duty to checkmate that move. Were you struck by what appeared to be the absence of opposition voices in that process? I mean, you have Labour lawmakers in the National Assembly. You are a Labour man, Labour presidential candidate in 2023. And we didn't really hear much from them in opposition, did we? In spite of your very loud and unequivocal call for the state of emergency to be rejected. I mean, how much does that suggest that not only is the opposition, the Labour Party, very weak, but that you were unable to exert any influence on them?
Charles, before I go into the opposition, there were, even in the House of Representatives, a particular Labour member did everything possible to ensure that the right thing was done by ensuring that it is not a voice vote, that is a vote that must be properly recorded.
Yeah, you're talking about Obi Agwocha, who
Yes,
stood up, but that was a solitary voice.
That's what I'm saying.
Why didn't we hear more voices?
At least it's from Labour, because he said no opposition, at least from Labour. At least, and there were others like that, they were shouted down. Even at the Senate, there were voices like that, like former governor of Bayelsa State, former governor of Sokoto State. There were voices.
Yeah, but they were not Labour.
No. But you said opposition. Yeah. But in
Fair
general,
enough.
the Nigerian political space was designed not to have opposition. Opposition doesn't exist here, Charles. If you want to look at where opposition exists, you compare us with other countries with similar trajectory. People have called me and said, look at what the oppositions are doing in South Africa. Look at what the oppositions are doing in other similar countries. But let's just use South Africa, which is, of course, the biggest economy in Africa today. And what they are doing, they have a presidential system, but have been able to have a system that allows opposition to exist in their system. You cannot have opposition that is effective unless you have proportional representation in the legislature. If you don't have it, you're wasting your time. If you look at South Africa today, as it is, just check their election. In 2019, ANC won 57.7% of the vote. They had 230 members. 2019, they had 40%. They had 160 members. While Democratic Alliance in 2019 had 20%, they had 80 people. In 2024, they had 21 plus, almost 22, they had 87 members. And that is the same thing for all other parties. And their leader is a member of that parliament. And you cannot cross from one party to the other, as you can do in Nigeria, without consequences. Once you cross from one party to the other, you lose your seat. Just even in the environment you know very well, the UK, you cannot have somebody from one party cross over to the other party without any consequence, without anything, and all that. So you have a system that works. And nobody's going to allow your member using contract, using this and all that, as is happening here. So it's a difficult thing. That's why we are clamoring that we must now change this constitution. We must now build a viable system. People have asked me, Peter, what are you going to do if you were there? I will make sure that this country is democratic. I will make sure that the opposition thrives by ensuring that I direct whoever and put all my own resources in terms of office to ensure that parties function the way they should. Today, they don't do that. You just have people doing all sorts of things in terms of, as I said, there's no democracy here. We need to fix it. Yar'Adua started doing it. He was sworn in here as the president, and he said, I will not allow the process through which I came to office to continue. I was a beneficiary of it, Charles. I had a free and fair second-term election. And that's what it should be. But instead of now having it growing the way you think things will be, we've taken 300 degrees reverse.
Well, you made a very interesting point there when you said that if you were to be the president,
yes,
that these were the actions you would take to shore up democracy in Nigeria. So let's talk about the positioning for power in 2027, because that's when, assuming you run for president, you will have another chance to test your popularity in Nigeria. lots of reports about realignments and various political groups and individuals said to be coming together to wrest power from the APC. How much are you in that mix?
Charles, I'm one person who is very reluctant at talking about 2027. I'll just probably gloss over it. Because we have a critical situation, Charles, where we're not addressing it. We have a country where our debt in 2015 is between 15 and 17 trillion. Now we have a country with a debt of 150 to 170 trillion. A country where our cost of debt servicing is now higher than our critical areas of budget for critical development, education, health, pulling people out of poverty. And we are discussing 2027. Just let's deal with what is happening today.
Yeah, but the fact is that you are discussing 2027.
I am part of it. I do all I'd say, and that's what I'm going to say now, is that whatever realignments, whatever coming together, we must discuss the future of this country. We're not just going to, I'm not going to be part of just wrestling power for power's sake. No. I want to know that we're going to do this in order to be able to invest in education, invest in health, invest in pulling our people out of poverty. How can a country with this size of uncultivated land not be able to feed itself?
Well, let me stay with that point of 2027. The reason is purely because it is enormously important, because those who support you, they want to see some sense of direction about what's going to happen next and whether or not you're going to try to realize that ambition again. I mean, some prominent opposition politicians have suggested that you should abandon your ambition of contesting the next presidential election and team up with Atiku Abubakar again as his deputy.
Which prominent politicians?
With an agreement. Well, I'm not going to mention names, but I mean, quite a number of them have suggested that you should team up with Atiku Abubakar as his deputy with an agreement that after one term he will work to make you president. They say that without this alliance, both you and Atiku will lose in 2027. What is your reaction to that?
Charles, elections are won, elections are lost by the vote of the people. All these things you're talking and all these things people are talking is because we're not democratic. Charles, we are talking of working together for the sake of the country, not because of political posts. I've said it before.
But if you don't have political power, you
No.
won't be able to change the country.
Charles, agree with that. That's why I've always said, I'm not desperate to be president. I'm desperate to see Nigeria work. Charles, it is all these alliances, all these groupings that brought us to where we are today. Because people were blinded. Instead of seeing what they would do to make the country work, make the country productive, they were focused on wrestling power. What are we going to use the power to do?
Yeah, but you ran for office in 2023. You wanted to wrest power from
Yes,
the
because
APC.
I wanted to do something.
Right.
Charles, I wanted to do something. I wanted to use it. By now, you would have been seeing the impact on education visibly. And I'm not talking about people coming to say it in TVs. You will be seeing it visibly. I would have even been visiting the schools.
Well, that's why. That's why some
the
of
health. You would have been seeing the primary. We have over 70% of our primary care are not functional.
But that's
You
why
would have
some of
seen the
your
change.
that's why some of your supporters are saying that for you to make this happen, you have to be able. You've got to be positioned. They say, to win the presidency.
Don't say my support. Don't just say some of my followers.
That's
I want
your
Nigerians to know
supporters.
it is about their country.
Indeed.
So many Nigerians today don't know where the next meal will come from. They don't know. Several people have been to hospitals where people can't leave the hospitals because they can't pay. We have less than 5% insurance, health insurance in this country, when comparable countries like Indonesia have 95%.
Yes, but you're not going to be able to change that unless you become president.
No, but the people have to know
Right.
and know that this man can do it.
Well, the argument is that even if you win in 2027, you'll be forced or prevailed upon to hand over to the North after just one term in 2031, which will not be enough for you to fulfill these electoral, let me just make the point, these electoral promises. Whereas if you worked with a one-term Northern presidency in 2027, you'd be more likely to scale through in 2020 2031, assuming the North keeps to the agreement. Does that sound like a reasonable proposal to you? Because you mentioned Yaradua, who came into office. He had to come into office before he started trying to change things.
Charles, the president that is there today, how many years has he stayed? 2 years. And you could see where we are. Look at the turn of things in 2 years. That means that you can change things in 2 years. If I was there in 2 years, Charles, then you would have seen considerable change. In critical areas, I would have tackled corruption head on. I would have reduced cost of governance. And you will see it. People will feel it. And those monies invested in critical areas. Our primary health care today, I told you, 70% are not functional. And we spent over 35 billion in conference center. Which conference? Who is coming for the conference? You need to invest your money properly. Charles, you have been seeing borrowed money invested in critical area. We, a country in Bangladesh with 148,000 square kilometers of land, is producing about 60 million metric tons of rice. And us, with over 6 times that size of land, cannot do 10% of that. Charles, there's room here. You talked about devaluation of Naira. There's nothing wrong in devaluation. I would have done something. I would have allowed the Naira to float. But I would have done it in an organized manner. There will be productivity. The idea of devaluing your currency, allowing it to float, to be cheaper, is that you have productivity so you can export, so people can come and buy. But when you don't have productivity and you devalue your currency, it's double whammy because you have nothing to sell. So I would have injected money in productivity. Today, nobody is producing anything. Somebody told me a few days ago, said, oh, they've removed there's no more tax or this, or some of the manufacturing inputs and everything. And I said, no. How can you manufacture? How can you do business when your interest rate is over 40%? Yeah, one of the biggest costs of manufacturing today, cost of production today, is interest rate. Charles, nobody borrows money at over 40% to do a business that is straight. You can only borrow, it's only government that is borrowing that amount of money at that cost. So you need to do the right things, and you can do it.
So what would be the thrust of your attack then on President Tinubu in 2027 that might tip the balance in your favor? I mean, you've talked about, the economy, you've talked about democracy, the rule of law, which you say suffered a setback. Given all that, what would be your strategy to erode confidence in the president and convince the Nigerian people to go with you rather than him?
It is not enough that your aides are running around. You, who is the main person, have to have an idea, be competent, have the capacity, have the compassion, the energy to do the job. It is not something you can lease out. Governance, leadership, is not something you can just hire somebody else to do for you. You are the leader. You should be the one answerable to the people, doing the right things. You're the chief person, and you should be in charge. We have too much of delegated responsibility here. That shouldn't be.
Very briefly, because we're fast running out of time, we've got less than 5 minutes now. Are you going to stick with the Labour Party, given the disarray that's in the party?
The disarray is caused by government.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter who calls.
No, that's what I'm telling you. Yes,
are you going to stick
I'm in Labour Party. I'm in Labour Party.
And are you going to stick with the Labour
Well, I'm there because I'm there. It's not something I can tell you now. I'm there today. And as time go on, Charles, if it changes, I'll tell you. I remember Labour Party. And these are one of the things I said I would do. I will make sure that parties work. I will protect democracy and make it work.
Some would say Labour Party isn't working under you.
No, it has nothing to do under me. I'm not the one running the party. Charles, I've been involved in all this. If government today is democratic and they want democracy to thrive, all these things will work.
Right.
Put me anywhere.
So you can only make the change if you're president.
I've told you, Charles, I saw this we had a problem under Yaradua, for example, in my party. He told it in front of me, told the INEC chief, I don't want all these party issues in front of me. I want it to be happen. I don't want all this. So you have to say you're democratic, practice it, believe in it, whether it favors you or not. Because that's what you want. You want to build a better, decent society that is organized.
Right. Okay. We've got a couple of minutes left before we have to go, which is rather sad because I'm enjoying talking with you. Before we go, after what's been clearly a rather depressing discussion about the future of Nigeria, cheer us up with one thing that could make this country look better to the world.
Well, Charles, I wish I can tell you. The only thing I can tell you is that it is what is happening can be turned around with a competent leader that has the capacity and compassion to serve. Because we have low-hanging fruits. There's nothing in following the rule of law. There's nothing in ensuring orderliness. There's nothing in fighting corruption. You know, people say it's difficult. It is not. If you are not involved, you reduce it by 50%. There's nothing in investing in critical areas of development. We're borrowing money, every left, right, and center. Invest that money properly. Tell Nigerians, come out, Charles, leaders come out every day and address their people. I will make sure I address Nigerians at least once every month and tell them what is happening. They want to know. I want to visit universities and tell them what is happening. I want to tour the states and see for myself what is happening. That's what it should be. We can change it. It's happened before.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed, and we really appreciate the time you've taken to